says he told him to his face. Who was going to tell the head of the entire church to his face that he was wrong? Well, the thing with Paul is he had spent a lot of face time with Jesus. It was a wild time for him. He had the interesting dilemma of having had an experience with Jesus, with God, the living God, and yet not having a scriptural grid for it. Now, Paul was a scripture guy. He spent 3 years in Arabia searching this thing out, I think. Tom Wright, Anglican bishop, believes that Paul may have gone down to the Sinai Peninsula. It was considered part of Arabia in the ancient world. And so we see Paul maybe down where the law was given, maybe in one of these little towns on one of the gulfs there. And he's probably working. He still has to make a living. He's probably making tents, providing for himself, and then using every free moment to get alone with his scrolls, to try to figure out and make sense of this experience he had. The last thing he expected, to meet the Messiah. He tells us in a later place in the book of Acts that at one point during this time he went into a trance and he had an experience. He had a vivid conversation with Jesus, explaining not only his call to the nations, to the Gentiles, but also explaining his gospel. Paul tells us that afterwards he went to the leaders of the church, not that he cares who's in charge, but he went to them to say, here's what I've gotten. What do you guys think? And they said, yeah, God's called Peter to the Jews, he's called you to the Gentiles. Go for it. So he did his thing. Some of the Jewish believers started complaining. And now we got this contest. We got this divergence. We got this conflict between the two gospels, the one that Paul was giving and the one that the Jewish believers were giving. Looking into the face of God, experiencing God through the scriptures like Paul did, like he had to do. It changes how we interact with others. He had no problem confronting Peter, who was treating the Gentile believers like they were unclean, something that he thought had been clarified. Paul spends the rest of this book talking about what the real gospel is. More on that tomorrow.